computer. So there we're starting to do that. And now we're going to go live on YouTube because it's almost 9 o'clock. So let's do that as well. Fresh Headies. Bubble Man's World.
Coffee. Offering.
Okay, we're going to go live here. Boom.
Is this microphone live?
Yes,
Marcus?
you are all live, my friends. Just give me a second here. I'm about to set up YouTube. There is a bit of a delay on YouTube, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Who is your guardian angel? That's weird. Angela Medium. Let's skip that. All right. Okay. All right. Well, I want to say something because I haven't yet, which is welcome to Hash Church. Holy smokes. I should have written 3.0, but I'll be honest, I wasn't ready to let go of 2.0 yet. I think that we only did 19 2.0 episodes. So I was like, it's still episode 2.0. We're in episode 20. This is the new platform, Zoom. So I want to welcome all our OGs into the room. Hemp Guy, D420K, Johnny B, and Etienne are all here. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Nice. How's your morning going?
My morning's going okay. It looks like they found us. So all of the people are in the room that we want them to be, which is great. So I'm going to just click the Hash Church link up here and share it. I don't know if you guys understand, but usually what I would do is I'd create a page on YouTube for the live show because Google worked through YouTube. Now I can't do that. I can create the show on YouTube, but when I start the show on Zoom, it creates it in a totally different box. So not quite the same as before, but that's okay. I'm just happy to be here. Got Douglas K. Gordon is going to come in today. He is the gentleman throwing the CanX conference in Jamaica. He's going to come talk a little bit about that. We didn't really have anything in particular to talk about today, so I just thought, let's just get a Hash Church under our belt. I miss these guys. Being able to come in and do this with you guys, to me, is, I'll be honest, I really, really missed it.
Well, we missed you too.
I look forward to talking to you guys and shooting the shit once a week. And you know, I was talking about it with someone else the other day, that dialogue that we did at Hash Church over the years really had a profound effect on the community, and it really helped sort of steer some of the things, some of the dialogues and conversations that we came up with from, you know, different, terpenes and rosin vape carts and terpenes and rosin itself. Both of those things were very, very rare to see in the world of cannabis prior to our talking about it on Hash Church. So that's pretty good. I'm going to give Hash Church some props for that, and all of you guys for being a part of that. It's fucking great. Not sure where everyone else is, but hey, I got my crew.
Yeah, but I don't see us on the YouTube screen.
You don't see it on the YouTube screen?
I'm looking for that too. I don't see
Let me figure you out. Let me figure you out here. Maybe I'm all by myself. Maybe I'm not. Let me see. You're right. We need to figure this out.
Oh, there's Darrin.
There's Darrin?
Darrin just popped in.
Okay, but
there's all of us. Woohoo! Hey, that's a different screen, guys. I like it.
You like that, Johnny B, where we can see everyone?
Kind of out there right now.
It's on YouTube, Johnny?
Yeah, I put it, it's on YouTube. So thanks, John, for that. I'd like to be able to see everyone. I probably don't understand how I have everything set up. I thought when I set it up, and I wonder if I set it up, like when you guys are up top, it's interesting that you don't show up there. But no worries, I'll put it in the gallery view. Welcome to Wade Laughter. I got a little pun there for your name. And of course, Mike West is in the room as well, who just showed up. He is on mute, so we won't be able to hear him right away. But geez, he looks like he's just fishing or something on that picture.
And pull the mic closer to me.
Yeah, Johnny B, they're saying you need a mic. Superior Genetics loves the hat. This was a gift from Ian Davidson. Apparently, they were the OGs to do compost, and then Jonathan from Forever Flowering Greenhouses came out with his version, which was light depth. And I have both of them. So thank you to Ian Davidson for the uber nice kick down on the compost hat. It's funny how many people think it says Compton. I like it. We've got 4 people wearing hats today, although one of us who's wearing a hat is wearing a very different type of hat. And then Mike also has his kind of on the side. So I'm just making like really obvious. I like the embark hat though, bro. You're on
Morning.
mute. There you
Of
are.
course.
Morning.
One pair of headphones.
I'm gonna mute Johnny B because he's talking to himself and making noise. And would it be Hash Church if Johnny B wasn't making random like sounds with his mic?
Bong rep. Bong rep.
There we go. Let's start this day off right. I know I sent this out to everyone, so I'm hoping that there's not people having problems with it. We'll see. I invited some other folks, but you know what? I'm liking the core group here, guys. This is nice.
I don't see it playing on YouTube. It says waiting for Bubbleman's World.
Yeah, same.
It's playing for me.
I was able to watch it on YouTube before I hopped on.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to send you the chat so you can see it, I don't have a problem doing that. It should be right
Up at the top left there, it says live on YouTube.
Yep, that as well. But he's probably looking at the old YouTube link, the thing that I was trying to explain earlier, that we don't come in on that link. We start a whole new one. So most everyone's there. It's definitely playing live, says OG Bricks. So I'm listening to, I'm watching the chat. Hopefully some of the girls show up. I did invite Hillary Black. I invited Wendy Turner. I invited Debbie Goldsberry. I invited Callie Blackwell from the UK. So hopefully some of them show up, as they always have. The last time I kind of did a Hash Church and I invited Callie and Debbie, they both had showed up for the first time and it didn't work, if you guys remembered that. We had a little bit of that. Hey, Mark Scialdone. How are you, buddy?
Hey, what's happening, Marcus? How are you?
On what level of extremely stoked were you at when you saw the the trucks and Trey
Last night?
Then the Trey and I can't even pronounce the name of that band.
Derek Trucks Tedeschi Band, right?
Oh no, the other one, Kwang Bin or whatever, because Trey played with them
right.
too. Did you see
Right.
that?
Yeah, last night they did Layla.
Yeah, well, last night they played with Trucks Band, and he did Layla, and they did like they did the Jimi Hendrix song, Little Wing.
Yeah, incredible weekend of music there. It was really good.
Compare that, honestly, to the Warfield shows back like however many years ago when Phil and Friends with Trey and Mike.
Yeah, it was epic. I mean, I think Derek is just next level. He's got, the Dwayne Allman thing just down, like playing slide.
Dude,
Just
watching
like,
Trey watch Derek was like, oh.
Yeah, and Susan Tedeschi brings it. I mean, she's like Bonnie Raitt. She sings from her soul. It's just
Totally.
It's such good music.
I was thinking of both you and Bishop when I saw that. I was like, you guys are happy.
Yeah, they had a loss earlier in the year. O'Teal's brother, Kofi Burnbridge, used to play with them in the Tedeschi Trucks Band. He unfortunately passed away, but
I've seen him with the Tedeschi Trucks Band. I've seen them all play together.
Yeah, they crushed it last night. It was incredible. I was like, the one thing I was like, oh my God, we watched it on Couch Tour and we're like, man, we're only like about 4 hours away. We probably should have went to that. I mean, it was just really, really incredible. We've seen both those bands play independently, but to see them mixed up like that 2 nights in a row was just.
It was on point. Much welcome to the young Padawan, Coltyn Turner, in the room, in the house. Just got asked, actually, do you ever invite patients into Hash Church? And then, Badoing, welcome, Coltyn. I'm not sure if we can hear you. Let's try something.
We're all patients, man.
And he's not muted. He might have to come in and restart a browser. This is all new to us, Coltyn. So have patience with us, but we definitely want to get this working. Usually there's I'm not sure where you would go to find the preferences. I know that you can, it is on the bottom left.
It's on the bottom left under mute. If you click over to the left there, it gives you your switch microphone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you can select your camera as well.
So what I had done earlier, Coltyn, when I came in, is it had chosen my microphone as a.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Awesome.
That was just like a commercial.
Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Dude, really good, man. Really good to have you here. And I saw that you and the fam went down to the Seattle Hemp Fest and stopped at some pretty cool little American, what were you guys at, like Mount Rushmore or something?
Yeah, we went to Mount Rushmore. We drove through the Badlands. We had to drive from Illinois to Seattle. So we took 2 days to drive all the way there.
Holy
so we
shit.
were able to see, Mount Rushmore. We drove through the Badlands, but it was night, so we didn't really get to see it too much.
Oh, shit.
But we also got to go see the geysers, and we got to go see Old Faithful and saw it go off.
Sick. That's awesome.
But it was really, we got to drive through, Yellowstone Park, so it was really fun. And even when we got to Seattle, Hempfest was just absolutely amazing. Everyone there was absolutely incredible, and I'm never gonna forget it.
So that was your first Hemp Fest?
That was my first Hempfest.
So tell us what it was like to be Coltyn Turner at the Hemp Fest. So you roll in with your Middle America family, super awesome crew, and what people are like, holy shit, I recognize that kid.
Well, it was really great because I spoke every day during the Hempfest, so I was able to talk to patients and talk to everyone about my story and about other people's stories, and I was actually on a panel talking about why it's important for kids to be able to use cannabis and why it can help treat some of their ailments. And it pardon me, it was really important for me because a lot of people even in legal states are also still having trouble fighting the law. Just because you legalize doesn't really mean that the fight is over. That's just stepping into the ring.
There's a lot of work left.
Yeah, like just for example, in Illinois, they accidentally banned smokables for anyone under the age of 21, which they accidentally banned RSO along with that because they classified that, or Fico oil, because they classified that as a smokable, so that way they can get around the milligram limit. And so now that is also not allowed for anyone under the age of 21. So
That's unacceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's absolutely unacceptable that the milligram limit is that low in the first place, that we have to go around to classifying things as smokables just to get around that.
Hey, honestly, kudos to you, Coltyn. I was, I'm a patient myself as a Gulf War veteran. I found it very hard to go out there and use my voice when I was in my early 20s. I got to give you mad props for being in your teens and going out there and representing like a madman. Your inner strength, your family support network, everything around you. I just have to give you major props for leading by example and being the strong individual that you are. You've risen above your own individual condition and are now using as a catalyst to help others, and that's a leader, sir. So I just want to say thank you very much.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Etienne. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, when did we meet Coltyn? When he was 14 or 15 years old, maybe?
Yeah.
You've come a long way, dude. And it's, I think personally, although I know we've all done a lot of work in the cannabis space, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, like I really feel the last leg of prohibition will be with children. They're the ones that are going to be kind of up and coming. You're no longer a child now. I saw you celebrated your 18th birthday recently, but you definitely came into this as a child, man. And you are still a young man. So it's super props. These are the people, you're the people that the next generation needs to hear from, not us old gray hairs. So way to take the torch and crush it. It was awesome to see you on the stage in Seattle.
Thank you so much. I definitely think that, the stigma, a lot of the stigma is definitely ending because, before I started cannabis, the talk about marijuana was that it's bad and don't use it. Now people are actually having conversations with their kids about cannabis, and there are, people who are actually educated in the subject. So people are getting the right information, and people are, using it, making the right decisions around cannabis. And, the kids that are, around today have so much more information than the last generation. So just as time goes on, those kids are going to get smarter, and they're going to be more educated on cannabis, and eventually everyone's going to have knowledge of it.
Well, what's nice about it now is that the kids are learning. As before, there was no education for the kids. There was nothing there. It's wrong, it's illegal, don't touch it, it's bad, it's going to cause you psychosis. I grew up in the 80s where, you know what, if you were smoking a joint, you were hiding. You were putting mouse spray on you, and you were like making sure you didn't smell like weed. So it's just fantastic to see where we are today in today's era, that the kids that when I was 16 are being educated on cannabis, are being told they need to be preventative medicine. There's all kinds of different things, and it's just great to see you kind of like speaking it, like showing exactly how cannabis saved your life. And like myself, I want to tell the world how much it helped me, just like yourself, Cole. You want to tell the world how much it's helping you, and that's a thumbs up, dude. I love that.
Yeah, the student has become the teacher now.
Yeah, well, that's the best part about cannabis is you become a student, then you want to teach everybody, and that's what cannabis does. You become the teacher, you become the professor, and over time, you are the person that everybody's looking at going, wow, look at how much it's helped you and saved you, and you're able to touch the people that are suffering from the same condition. Like I know people, and I look at them, and they're like, dude, and I'm just like, yeah, smoke one of these or take some CBD, or that's the biggest thing is it's there for us to just take and learn from.
On so many different levels too. There are the there's my level. I didn't come into it as a patient. I came into it as a recreational smoker. I was 14 years old puffing a joint with my buddy, and we just grew to have that experience with cannabis without really the the more serious kind of like the patient story, the Coltyn Turners, the John Berfelos, the Etienne Fontaines. The patient stories are powerful, and those people, when you have that patient story, well, of course you're going to have to tell every single person, like, I mean, oh my goodness, like you just dealt with this ailment with this particular herb in a way that is super profound, and now you're going to hear someone be like, oh yeah, I have that same thing. Like, you could not tell that person if your lips were stapled shut. You would have to tell them. You would make it a point of telling them, and that is very profound.
Right. Like when I came out and said, hey, I'm a Crohn's patient, I use cannabis, I spoke out because Crohn's disease is a very taboo disease. People don't like to talk about their poop. So, it was really important for me to speak out because I felt like, there was nobody else. Because when I first started cannabis, nobody was talking about cannabis and Crohn's disease. And then after, I started to get more and more out there with my story, Crohn's patients would like come out of the woodwork and go, oh, well, I've been smoking for 10 years and, cannabis does great for me. Well, where were you? Why didn't you speak up?
Well said, Coltyn. Well said, because I'll tell you, when you came out with your patient story, it was a huge relief to me, because now all the people with Crohn's that were coming to me, I was able to just direct over to you, because you actually, I don't have Crohn's. I didn't use cannabis for Crohn's. Sure, I've read stories and I've heard information from people, but you have a firsthand experience. You have something that goes beyond, like, well, what about clinical trials? What about, how do we know it works? What about clinical trials? Tell that to Coltyn.
Well, Coltyn has gone even above that and actually set up a foundation. So there's the Coltyn Turner Foundation, which I actually just sent a friend of mine who has a young daughter who has Crohn's, and send him your direction so that he could talk to your mom and talk to your support network and have an understanding as a parent, because he's in an illegal state. And he's trying to figure out if he now has to do what you did, Coltyn, and move to a legal state with and be the parent and actually move his family there so he can take care of, his daughter so that she can at least have a semblance of a normal life via cannabis. She hasn't even tried cannabis yet, but he's exhausted everything going the legal route that he needed access to information. Thankfully, Coltyn, you and your parents have come up with your own foundation so you can educate people further. So thanks again.
Absolutely, because one of the biggest issues, in my opinion, we can talk about what kind of method is the best way to use cannabis, or what strain works better. But we're not going to know all of that without research, because really I think that we just hit the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this plant, and I think that we need to really learn more about it, because I feel like we're going to over legislate it and make too many regulations over it to the point where we can't really use it to its full potential. So I think that, how can we regulate something that we don't know? And also, whenever I go to a doctor or a politician or a lawyer or anybody, the one thing that they always tell me to completely discredit my story is, there's no research. So I got tired and I said, I'm going to fund my own research. So that way we can actually prove that cannabis does help and is a safe, natural alternative.
Well, speaking of cannabis research, we look who just came into the room. We got Dr. Ethan Russo popped in with the Dragonfly Earth Medicine. Josh and Kelly just came in, so we should welcome them to the show. And Collin as well just popped in from Massachusetts, from Happy Valley.
Welcome, everybody.
How you guys doing?
Hey,
Pleasure. Nice to see you all. Hi,
Well-
Josh. Hi, Kelly. Hello.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you, Coltyn. So beautiful seeing you here and talking about things that are just really important. We really appreciate you on our side.
Totally.
Great to see you.
I love the sarcasm that he approaches it with, this sort of like, I'd rather be illegally alive than legally dead. Like, ooh. The first time I heard that, I was kind of like, whoa, that's kind of sharp. I like it.
The first time that I said it, I was 14, which is, you'd think that, an adult would say that, somebody who's, really cool and intimidating and, people who have done the time, but it was
Coltyn, you did your time and it's okay. You're a hero. You've lived through it. You're a survivor like the rest of us. You're a man now, but you were a man surviving through that entire time. Most kids never have to live with the stigma, much less the trauma that you and your family had to experience. And that saying comes from the heart, from the soul of a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
It's
You're
not
mad
sarcasm
cool.
at all, right?
And
No
you're
sarcasm.
You know what I mean,
End of
though?
the
Just
set.
that harsh, like, to them, to the other side. To them,
Right.
Like, for us, we love it. But imagine being, like, in law enforcement or something and hearing that from a 14-year-old boy. 14-year-old boy that had to move away from his grandparents so that he could, access cannabis as a medicine. Pretty, I think you're mad cool, dude.
Thank you so much.
Second that.
So are all of
you're up to
you.
that.
If it wasn't for you guys, then people like me wouldn't be able to have the information that they have today, and people wouldn't be as educated as they would be today, because you guys are pushing the discussion. You guys are pushing the subject, and I really appreciate that. And I know that patients all around the world appreciate it too.
We're more of shoving it than pushing it.
Even better.
Right down the throat.
We're done playing Sisyphus. Everybody else can catch it going downhill now.
Yes.
Right.
To
Exactly.
be
Yeah,
honest,
someone in the chat said that sounds like something Skunkman Sam would say. And it really does, actually.
to be honest, one of the big things pushing the whole reality now is big business, big government taxing. They smell the money and they want it. And I give a damn who makes the money. I just want cannabis to be legal for every use by everybody, everywhere.
True that.
You know, Sam, you've been saying that for 20 years or more.
And finally, it came true about big business. They are driving it. They're now paying for as much research into cannabis for beneficial reasons as the NIA ever did.
That is incredible. I mean, if you go to the ICRSs, I mean, Ethan, you go to all these events. Don't you think that you can see this incredible growth in the money that's coming in for research?
Yeah, I do. The problem is a lot of it is not aimed in the right direction. Let's take the situation in Canada. You've got something like 200 licensed producers, but the main activity is mergers and acquisitions rather than actual research. And that's true with few exceptions. Additionally, a lot of what they're gearing towards research is just observational studies, which are not helpful from the standpoint of really convincing the physicians or the regulators. You know, it's nice corroboration for those of us who already understand the medical benefits of cannabis. But, you know, if it were up to me, a lot of this money would be aimed in a different direction that I think could advance the cause much more effectively.
Like much more effectively than paying like 147 million euros for the Volcano company, or like 224 million for Anandamida Labs. Like those are some pretty bad, like I was actually pretty surprised at some of the Canadian mergers and acquisitions that have occurred. No more so than the investment of Constellation putting 5 billion Canadian dollars in. I was like, man, they got to put some of that into research. That's a lot of money.
It's also the same as any new big business. I mean, when the automobile industry started in America at the turn of the century, there were hundreds of automobile companies. Now, how many are there?
Yeah. It does seem to be the plan is to try and be one of the big four, or the big five, or whatever the big number is going to be for the way it is for so many other things, right? It's
the financial posturing has begun.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't
Dr.
worry.
Russo,
We just
I had
stay
a question.
not worry about it. You know, they'll just be folly, you know, here and there.
Did someone say they had a question?
Yes, this is Wade Laughter. And Dr. Russo, would you, I imagine you saw the study that was just published by Merrill and others in Israel on whole plant preparations, decarboxylated and non-decarboxylated, and their effects on cannabis?
Not sure. Maybe you could say what their premise was, or what were their findings.
I'm not sure where the funding was. I think it was with Technion University, and they were looking at commercially available products in the Israeli market. They got like 120 different products. They tested all of them for 89 cannabinoids. There was clearly a lot of money behind the study, but they picked 12 plant preparations, whole plant preparations with a whole range of cannabinoids, and tested them for efficacy against, I think it was 20 different cancer cell lines in vitro. And then of course they kept controls of straight THC and straight CBD and whatnot, but they found some of the more unusual cannabinoid mixes had really profoundly good results at low doses against a bunch of different cell lines.
Now I'm with you. Yeah, a lot of this work was done by David Meiri in Israel at the Technion. I know him, I've seen him numerous times, and yeah, this is a good advance, but we have to be careful in interpreting these results. What they're doing is testing different concentrations of material, either whole cannabis extracts, or fractions thereof or specific molecules in cell culture. What we have to remember is that a lot of substances will kill cancer cells in cell culture, but that doesn't necessarily translate to an effective treatment in humans. In this instance, yes, we know that cannabinoids can kill cancer cells. They promote apoptosis. Apoptosis is programmed cell death, which sounds like a bad thing, but cells are supposed to have a normal lifespan. What happens in cancer is that they're not heeding the normal signals and they become immortalized, which is a way of saying that they grow forever until something stops them, hopefully in medicine. But I think that that kind of research can aim us towards what might be effective agents to promote then through selective breeding of various chemovar lines. But ultimately, it's going to come down to using these things in humans to see if they really work.
Well, I was fascinated by the study because it seemed to suggest that the old school traditional way of making cannabis preparations, actually, it was a study that confirmed our experience, which is the right preparations seem to have pretty dramatic effect with some cancers. A lot of folks use really high doses, but I personally have seen some pretty good results at low doses in folks that don't really like cannabis at all, but have cancer. And it's just a nice confirmation of what I personally have seen and many other folks report, that something's going on with cannabis and cancer and many other conditions. The problem is most of the research, in order to be randomized, double-blind, et cetera, you're having to use isolates, and it misses the whole picture of what the plant can do for us. That's what I was.
And that
yeah, that's all I got.
That kind of sounds, maybe Ethan, if you agree with this, like there's the isolating of cannabinoids and the isolating of medicine for pharmaceuticalizing something, and it has its limitations. And then, Petri dish and in vitro testing has its limitations. And really it seems to keep coming back to whole plant medicine. And the whole plant medicine is having that reaction with our neurological system being, it seems to continue to be confirmed.
I say, regardless of what you choose, make it all available.
Yeah.
Because I don't want my choice to hinder your choice. And also, welcome, Nishi. You weren't in the picture earlier. Right now, I want to say you guys do look like an oil painting. And I think someone should take a screenshot and oil paint that picture right there at the DEM Pure camera, because that's pretty amazing.
I'll second that motion.
Am I wrong?
So if anyone does, awesome. I'll let her explain. But it seems like it's okay. There it is.
Right side up.
Chronic relief.
Yeah.
Donor.
It's on my shelf.
Hello. So nice to see you.
Hello.
Thank you so much for the great
People
work.
hear me?
Yes, John, but Nishi was talking.
What were you going to say, John? I'm sorry.
He just said, can people hear me?
So I was just saying thank you all for the great work that you're doing. I live in Austin, Texas, where cannabis is basically illegal. And we do have a fairly wimpy CBD law that serves a very small percentage of the population. It's a glorified warehouse hemp law, really. And, while it's super frustrating that we aren't making more progress in my state, we're making progress. And it's wonderful to see that through programs like this and the work that all of us are doing, collectively, we are making progress, even though it seems painfully slow for us. It is progress. And what's super interesting to me at the moment is the fact that the general public is finally catching up to where all of us are. The problem seems to be that government isn't, and I think that they're slowly getting there, and as they sort of come on board with seeing that cannabis is the true medicine and that it's very safe and effective, versatile medicine, hopefully we'll start to see better laws around the world that reflect that, even though it's painful. And I think that all of us have to continue to stay the course and keep talking about it.
Give thanks. And thanks, Coltyn.
When do you think things will happen at the UN level? We've seen the World Health Organization and others actually start to go for cannabis medicine, but we thought a potential vote was going to happen in the spring or potentially in the summer, but that has not yet arrived, and now we're looking to 2020 at this time. What can the individual watching here do to put pressure on so that we can see the results in the end?
I'm going to leave that to Ethan.
Sure. Basically, because of the work of the World Health Organization, they really should have to make a vote this next winter. The trouble is there's always someone willing to throw a wrench in the gears, and it looks like the Russians are opposed. And it may be that they'll find a way to put this off yet again. But the foundation is there. They've already recommended that cannabidiol be descheduled, and that there be rescheduling of other forms of cannabis and THC. We'll have to see. I think that at whatever level, people need to pressure their politicians, particularly on a federal level, to try and get this resolved. They need to understand that ultimately, I think it's economics. Money is what talks. And if we can convince people that there's money to be made through cannabis commerce, and that the prison industrial complex is not a benefit to society, then there may be changes.
Yeah, ain't that the truth right there?
I have a question about Parkinson's for Dr. Ethan Russo, if I could ask a question here, Marcus.
Why not?
Sure. So it's a pleasure asking this question, Ethan. I've had a family member. My father's had Parkinson's for 16 years to date, and we found a regimen of THC and CBD, slightly not quite a one-to-one, with specific terpenes that have helped his neurological being. And I wanted to know if you had ever seen any profound effects in your time with Parkinson's and cannabinoid-based therapies. I know as our family, it's been extremely confusing, and it's something that has really been a guiding light for us. So I just wanted to simply ask the question and see what your thoughts were.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a tough area. It's not like some of the other conditions where you rapidly can see a benefit. Various preparations have been tried in Parkinson's and with mixed results. My feeling is that most often a small amount of THC is going to be helpful with a larger amount of CBD. Actually, the best results that we know of to date have come in an entirely different form. In about 15 years ago, there was a very good survey study that came out of the Czech Republic by Venderova et al. And what happened there was a fellow that was eating what appeared to be raw cannabis. I honestly don't know whether it was THC predominant or hemp that would be CBD predominant, but I think THC predominant. And over the course of a long period of time, he improved his symptoms. This fellow was on Czech TV, their equivalent of 60 Minutes. And apparently a lot of people started doing this. And so they had some 200 odd patients that had done this. And what the findings were that almost all aspects of Parkinson's would improve, but after a prolonged interval, that people were getting their best results after 3 months of using raw cannabis ingested rather than inhaled. So what that suggests to me is probably it was either a combination of THCA, possibly with CBDA. But again, something is happening very slowly here. So it's quite different to someone treating their pain acutely or treating their spasticity acutely. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any real follow-up on that, but like anything else, but particularly with Parkinson's, experimentation is going to be needed, and I would really wonder about cannabinoid acids. And again, combinations.
CBGA and CBG as well.
I've gone through hundreds of cultivars, literally, and what I found is after a while, for my father at least, the effects of those said cultivars or strains, if you will, start to taper off, and I have to start looking again. And we keep trying, and we keep trying.
Sure.
And it's been a vicious cycle, but to your point, we have noticed that in acid form, THCA is more profound for him than if we decarboxylate it. So he just the way he works, his body responds better to that for some reason. So really interesting and really solidifies a lot of things we've been doing. So thank you very much for sharing that.
You
So,
bet.
Ethan, what would you suggest that they do from a dietary or microbiome and endocannabinoid tone building supplementation program for
Yeah,
that?
well, that's a good question. I mean, my feeling is that so many of the disorders we're seeing in modern society are related to inflammatory and autoimmune processes. We know that in the 21st century, these things are really common, whereas in the 19th century, they were exceptionally rare. And the difference is our diets. I'm a big proponent now of prebiotics and probiotics, getting that gut balance in. My feeling is that the gut microbiome is the master regulator of the endocannabinoid system. So you can treat things that way and supplement with cannabinoids subsequently. And I think between the two that we've got possible effective treatments for a lot of man's ills.
And I'm thinking medicinal mushrooms fit in there too as well with their neurological aid with lion's mane and the other nootropic regenerative cell.
That was cool. You just said nootropics at the exact same time I did, but I was muted. It was awesome to hear your voice come out of my... That was a trip.
Yeah, cosmic.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. It's again, there's a lot of toxins in this world, you know, nowadays, and, you know, they're finding 10,000 plastic particles in 1 liter of snow in the Arctic right now. And, you know, there's just a lot of overload in our bodies. So, you know, even things like activated charcoal, you know, is not a cannabis thing, but it's a way of detoxing our system and helping our microbiome. And I think it's a combination of cannabinoids and terpenes, but it's also a combination of other herbal properties.
And I think that Josh just touched on something that I think is really important as well, as detoxification. And I think that, you know, we're always talking about what kind of things that we can add to our body to help boost our immune system. And I think also it's important to start looking at how we can detoxify, you know, our cells, our intestinal system, so that these other treatments that come after that work better.
Cleanse our liver.
For sure.
I just wanted to add that with Parkinson's, also the medication you take, I forget what it's called, L-Dopa or whatever, it causes severe nausea in some patients. And that is a real problem, and cannabis can help with severe nausea.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, you know, so for my father, he was a 101st Airborne, 1st of the 506. So he was directly involved in Vietnam and out on recon by himself with 2 other gentlemen that was a sharpshooter and the other guy was dismantling bombs. So they would just get rained on with DEET. literally. He would tell stories of just walking through the jungle and all of a sudden be like, boom, and just get nailed with just this toxic stuff. And, you know, it's insane to me that it took so long for his body to basically was fending all this stuff off for so long. And then it just overcame his neurological being in itself. And really took our family for a storm. And it was very confusing. No one wanted to admit that he had it. No doctors wanted to sign him off as that. And we were just left confused. So it's very interesting that.
There's a question. Are you taking?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was asking you, is he taking any amino acids by any chance, along with his cannabis?
He is. He's doing
like tyrosine or tryptophan.
He does a raw diet as well.
Okay. Because I take a lot of amino acids, and there was a paper why amino acids work that I worked on with Bree Stegman years ago, and I just looked it up, and it looks on the Parkinson's.
Collin,
it states what we were just researching.
Collin, that's par for the course. The VA will deny, and they basically give some of the worst healthcare possible. That's why I have my own healthcare, because they told me the blisters on my feet for 9 years were all in my head and all kinds of other problems. And it wasn't until 5 years down the line that a brave doctor actually told me that they were told to lie to us. Correct. And then 2 years later, I got a 9-page breakdown of everything I was actually exposed to due to overrunning positions and having all these bunkers blown up around us. So it's actually modus operandi for the VA to deny, et cetera. That's why it is diligent upon you and your family to throw it back in their face and be as blunt, honest, and capture as much as your anger to them as possible, and vitriol. They deserve.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Philadelphia often. I do work with University of Pennsylvania, which is, you know, there's some smart people and great people over there. However, it is still confusing. So it's nice to hear a lot of this stuff from y'all. So it really helps better understand.
Make copies of everything. They're going to lose your paperwork. Make sure you have your own copies. I've had my paperwork lost from DAV, American Legion, VFW. It took me 4 to 5 different filings just to get my Gulf War syndrome stuff.
Wow.
So denial is always the thing. So it's, again, upon you and your family to be as educated and throw it back in their face as possible, because majority of these doctors, remember, 80% of physicians go through the VA system because it's immediate residency. So you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've had more than my share of ugly. But there's some good ones out there. Don't get me wrong. Just, I choose to use regular physicians in the regular world, which is why I have a business and insurance, and I cover my insurance as well as, you know, most of my employees as well, because healthcare in America still sucks, and it should be a right, but we still have to take care of our own.
No doubt. No doubt. Absolutely.
Which is kind of empowering, you know, but it's not. But, you know, it's
quite confusing.
You kind of like, oh, well, I can't rely on the system. Sometimes I find here in Canada, you know, people rely on the system so much that they turn off their self-reliance button, you know, and they're like, oh, I don't have to think about it, I'll just go to the doctor, you know. So I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, definitely medical care is the way to go, but also just continue learning like we're doing here is really where we're going to advance.
No doubt, man.
Oh yeah, I know that. Did you have a question?
What is your dad's intake method?
His delivery for cannabis, is that what you're asking? So I make pills. Well, now he buys them, but we started where I would make pills for him, and also tinctures. So that's really the delivery method of his preferred delivery method. So we would do that 3 times a day, 2 to 3 times a day. That's where we started out, and now we're just down to once a day. And that's it. That was the way that we found was the best way for him to intake and ingest cannabis for him. So that's what we chose to do.
Thank you. How well controlled are his symptoms?
So they have they were wildly out of control, you know, at one point, and now they are controlled, and he's actually going on a trip to Europe, and he's feeling like he's going to go to Amsterdam, he's going to Spain, so he's, you know, he's working out 3 times a week, which is great. I'm really on him about what he should be doing to be proactive, and it's a thing where it's tough, because you want to have all this energy, and you want him to have all this excitement that I share and have, and all this belief, and he doesn't have it, because it's the disease. It's causing him to feel all these things, from depression all the way to lack of motivation, and all these things that you have to remind him, like, hey, you're here, we have I'm here with you, you want to be here with us, right? I want to be here with you. And those are the things that allow him to overcome those hard tasks, so to speak. So he's, 3 times a week he gets out, and he walks every day, which is great. So obviously some days are better than others. It's just the way that it's built. The disease is really its own. It has its own mind. It's really fascinating how just when you think you got it, you're like, yeah, I got this. It totally changes and morphs and does its thing on you, and it really it's absolutely mind-bending. I mean, it's really fascinating, but it makes me work harder. It's why I'm in Mass, and why I'm around all these universities and minds that I can collaborate with, to try to help better understand not only what I'm going through, but what they're trying to do with cannabinoid research, so we can all together find a more profound understanding to make a more informative choice. So that's something I struggle with all the time. But yeah, the delivery method has been tinctures, and I think it's really and pills, and those are the 2 right now that we found have been really helpful.
That's really fabulous. We make a medicinal mushroom hemp oil combination oil, and it's something that's not really very common, and it's something we've used for a long time, and I would really love to send some to you if you're interested. He can give it a try. It has the lion's mane and the red belted conch and chaga and a lot of the other medicinal mushrooms, and we just feel very inspired with the mushroom realm, as much as the cannabis, and to bring them together. I think, sometimes it's just the fusion and you don't know what it is. But anyway, yeah, we'd just be willing to that thought.
What are the active ingredients in those mushrooms? I'm just curious. It's obviously not psilocybin, is it?
No.
So we really would love for it to be psilocybin, but we're waiting on that.
Yeah.
So we are really actively looking for, being able to define exactly what's in it. But so, it's the polysaccharides and the beta gluten.
So it's a water soluble extract from the mushroom?
Oil. It's an oil extract.
Oil. Okay, yeah, oil.
They steam, the mushrooms are steam extracted, and then it goes into a lipid extraction. There.
Cool.
And we also use a combination of fungi. We use live polypores from the tree, as well as dual extracted chagas and different things for the bioavailability.
Also,
well, in the name of science, guys, let's do a little analytical chemistry and figure out what are the molecules in there.
They're aromatic molecules. The ones from lion's mane are known as hericenones and erinacines, diterpene compounds, and they spur production of NGF in nerve cells. This is what I'm doing right now, thus helping to maintain cholinergic system and forebrain function. But that's just lion's mane. There's all sorts of nootropics, and Paul Stamets has an enormous amount of information on these mushrooms on his website.
So they're not alkaloids, right? The compounds aren't alkaloids, they're terpenes?
Well, in this particular instance, the bioactive's in lion's manes, but there's a whole bunch of nootropic mushrooms, like he just mentioned, chaga, which is another one. There's a schwack of them. Memory and nerve support.
So
you know what Paul Stamets is getting into? It's the real deal. What's that, Kelly?
I was just saying, Mark, we were talking to you a little bit earlier, and we did want to, get to the bottom of this. We've never really separated cannabis and mycology in medicine. We've always mixed the two and had tremendous results from the patients who have been taking it. But really, there's so much unknown because we weren't able to test it in a regular testing facility because it also had cannabis in it. So now we have this ability to move forward and really find out what is in this medicine that's been working so well for people.
Yeah, I mean, now that there's plenty of labs around that can do cannabis testing, a lot of them do have the analytical instrumentation to figure out what some of these other minor compounds might be that are in there.
I was reading last week or the week before that the flavonoids are 800 times more stronger than aspirin and Tylenol and certain things that the researchers just came out with. There's a big article on it. I'd like to find it again. Did anybody read that?
All right, beautiful people. I love you. I have to head out. I want to say a happy belated birthday, D420, as well as congrats on your business, Bubble Man, and Ethan Russo. Thank you for coming in, man. Many blessings. Coltyn, everybody, I thank you very much. I'm off. I'm celebrating my 50th this week as well. So I love you guys. I'll talk to you later.
Happy birthday, brother, and thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thanks for coming out, Etienne.
Darren, you haven't said it for yet today.
Yeah, he did. He said it 53 minutes ago.
Yeah, but you know what? I will say it again. It was just such good conversation. How do I interrupt that shit? Honestly.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You know, so I'll give it a good one here. Bong rip.
Oh, and we gotta. This is in honor of Brandon Vizzle. He said that he's a big fan, and if he could get a shout out, it would make his day. And I'm thinking, well, if that's gonna make his day, then shout out to Brandon Vizzle.
Hey, bong rip, Brandon. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
What up, Brandon Vizzle?
I'm only going to do a 2-hour hash church today, so we got another hour left of dialogue, and happy to take it in whatever direction that it goes in. Just happy to be joining on the Sunday morning with all of you wonderful people again. It's been too long.
Could I try to steer this in a little direction? It's kind of off topic what we were talking about before, but I would really like what would be the easy, well, not easy start, but how would a guy like myself who hasn't done the living soil or any of that sort of stuff before, where would I get started on this?
Getting started on learning living soils. Well, you know, we did do a good hash church on soils. I think it was a year ago or something. And if you look back and resource that, it has a lot of information on it. And there are people that analyze soils, like Leighton Morrison and Scott Granola online. And there are people that do help people with living soil systems. You can look them up. But we also work with people. You can hit us up. I think we might be seeing you soon. I wouldn't say that there's like a book out there that says something on living soils and this is exactly how to do it. I think it's more linking up with farms that are doing the work and doing testing along with their soils.
Jeff Lowenfall's books are worth checking out, though. His teaming books.
Jeff Lowenfeld has teaming with microbes and teaming with fungi and teaming
with nutrients.
And all of those are incredible scientific tools.
Another one, a new one by Michael Phillips is really great on soil. Even I found it a little technical, but if you understand it, it's very detailed. It's not specific to cannabis, but it'll give you all the background information that you need.
And I think if we start transitioning the mind work and what we've been already taught by Big Ag is that, it's the soil that's feeding the plants rather than the nutrients that you're giving it. So everything that you're putting into your soil, you have to wonder, how is it affecting your soil? What is your soil eating? And then all of the exudates from the microbiology within the soil then transfer over to the feeding of the plant. So just transferring your mind over to let the soil feed the plant and you're feeding the soil. That's a super helpful way to look at it. And what kind of things in nature, like soil, what kind of things in nature are digesting soil very rapidly? And that's, carbon that's already happening. So if we're just transitioning our mind, it's almost like once you start getting into the microbiology, then the microbiology takes over the education in your mind, and then you're actually being educated by the microbiology itself.
Did Josh seriously just come into the room?
I know. Hey, Josh.
Were your ears burning, dude?
Were you talking about me? I'm trying to get my headphones to work, but I'm having difficulties.
It's all good. I think this platform, it works really good even without headphones. But seriously, Darrin was just like, okay, I got a question. I want to steer this in a different direction. How do I learn about living soils? And then literally they started talking, and I was just kind of looking around, but then I looked down and I'm like, what the heck? When did he come into the room? That was trippy. Welcome.
I'm all yours too, because I kind of want to start doing the same thing.
So we're talking about living soil.
I think also, living soils is a term that describes an action, and the action of a living soil is decomposing. And when soil is decomposing, it's advancing the microbiology and it's advancing the nutrients that's going in the roots. So traditionally in cannabis growing, a lot of people bought soil that was finished. It had this maybe peat moss or cocoa, and it was this finished, cooked down soil with all the nutrients in it. And you bought this finished soil, and then you added teas to it throughout the cycle. And it wasn't really alive in the same way. So what we're learning now with living soils is using, combinations of raw materials in the beginning, in the making of the soil, like different alfalfas and hays and different carbon sources, along with certain parts of biochar, which is sort of a charcoal in the soil, which allows microorganisms to live, but it's also somewhat of a filter. And then you add in a nice mulch or top layer to the soil to continue the feeding of the microbiology. And then you can use, fermented plant teas really, really easy from there every once in a while, every couple weeks or whatever it is, to add to your soil. So making a really rich soil is the ticket.
And I think that it's a lot like, when you invite friends over to dinner, you usually write them and say, hey, what are your dietary restrictions? What is it that my friends like to eat? It's really the same. What kind of fungi do you want in your soil? And then you ask the question, oh, well, what does that fungi want to eat? So if you're going to be inviting in all these different beneficial microbiology, they have to be eating, and in order to colonize, they have to be eating. So you're really focused on what I like to eat in order to stick around and colonize.
Which will bring more terpenes and more cannabinoids.
Well, the one thing that I sure noticed about the stuff that was grown in living soil was the taste and the buzz, the smell, like the stuff. Like I was sitting in my room the other day doing my measurements on this and that. I don't do the proper measurements as they say on the label. I do my own measurements as I feel that the plants can take with my nutrient levels and that sort of stuff. So I do my own little tweaking, and that is like, basically we can teach a monkey to do that and he can run the show no problem if that's what we're doing. And it's really nice dope and everything like that, but then there's that living soil where I tasted it and was just, what the hell is that? That is unbelievable. And like you can almost taste the earth that it's grown in as well, and then the concentrates from it too, mind-blowing, earth moving, life-changing type situation. And then I'm like, well, I'm a pretty good grower, I guess, with doing measurements and pH and water and stuff. Good for me. But if I could take those strains the cultivars that I have and make them better and how they are right now, and they could be better because of that living soil mix, I need to learn it. I need to.
One thing I wanted to bring up, I get a lot of indoor growers talking to me and asking questions on how to do, living soil beds indoors. And we've kind of all seen the model on Instagram where it's, fabric pots, 12 inches deep, these beds. And as I've just been learning and able to talk with different folks and experience growing outdoors and in a greenhouse that is connected to the soil, Because I used to do this method for about 10 years, and learning with Leighton is we realized that if you're not connected to the earth, you have problems. Number one, there's electrical issues. You're not physically grounded to the earth, but also, a lot of people miss the mulch layer. And Josh and Kelly, the way they do it, they do lots of these layers, and the mulch is kind of like a moisture cap, if you will. And it holds all the moisture in it and regulates the moisture. And then the other thing we're really getting into is, instead of just having this 12-inch layer of what we're calling the organic horizon, that people are making up the peat mixture, a third peat, a third aeration, a third compost. That's really an organic horizon in a natural earth setting. And we're missing the A horizon, the alluvial layer that is made up of sand, silt, and clay. And the importance of that is it's doing the same thing. It's balancing the moisture throughout. So when you water, you don't get all this runoff. You get this balance of, moisture in the bed. And that's where we're seeing like really long-term success in an indoor platform, because then once you establish the right biology, via a good compost tea, those microbes will actually start harvesting the nutrients from that alluvial layer, the sand, silt, and clay, and you won't need to be top dressing after a period, and I just want to kind of throw that into this discussion. I don't know, if you Josh and Kelly, if you've experienced or done any of that work with when you consult with indoor grows, but just something we're seeing.
I'm saying alluvial for one. That's a fun word. But yeah, I mean, having those are essentially trace minerals too, and when it comes into sand and it comes into clay layers and volcanic, ash layers and stuff like that. And I think that is really smart. I think that there's been like that was also another teaching was having the soil drain out really fast, and then aerate it, which is kind of almost like flood and drain a little bit more. So I think you're totally right. And it's being able to contain the moisture keeps the life alive. Otherwise the microbiology has to sort of die out and then regrow. And then I think you get more supple trichomes in the end. And I think that's what you're seeing, Darrin and Mike, the extract artists that are taking the extraction from that, healthy sphere.
And also I think that, you were saying that you're getting a better flavor and taste when you put a plant in its natural environment, because plant's natural environment is soil, then you're going to bring out the ultimate potential of that particular strain. And what we've seen is that we've been able to take really old strains that have been played out, for lack of better term, and be able to put them in our deep, rich soil beds for a whole season and totally regenerate that plant. There's a lot of regeneration talk with tissue culture, and I would like to really put in the hat regeneration of these strains through deep soil, living soil techniques as well.
Yeah, I would just add that I've seen this work. These guys have documentation of plants that are approaching 3 meters in height now that were this high 6 weeks ago, just through these techniques.
And it's just with water.
Good soil and water and a lot of sunshine.
And a lot of the big leaves that, we had that big leaf picture on there. I mean, we have lots of plants with big leaves like that. And anyway,
it's not strain dependent. So, I really want to encourage people that have a played out strain that they've really loved and they've held on to for a whole long time, give it to somebody else or start doing living soil techniques on their own to rejuvenate this strain. And I think that that's going to be really helpful in the industry into the future.
I'd also add that when you carry that out, living soils give a structure to the trichome that allows you to cure the plant better afterwards. And it gives a longevity to the flowers. There's another thing. Thanks, John. We have this thing where you have to sell your flowers within 2 weeks of harvesting it. A lot of times, a lot of people, there's a lot of people up here in British Columbia and stuff. They'll be like 2 weeks later, it's on the market. But you lose out on curing your cannabinoids. And we were talking about this the other night, and just CBN or something, a newer cannabinoid that can happen after time, 1 year and 2 years. So I think that living soils also allows you to have better medicine and you can cure it longer, which allows you to do different things with your medicine. And hopefully people like Coltyn or other, patients can get different kinds of cures out of it.
What I love about living soil is you have the opportunity to control what things you are actually in your soil. And by finding the inputs that you need on your property, it's the biology that works on your property. And you by concentrating and enhancing it in your soil, you start one, not only increasing the quality of the material you're producing, but you decrease your costs. You're not having to go buy things. And meantime, every time you go and buy something, you're trusting that what the bag or box or whatever that packaging is actually what is in there. What it says is actually what's in the bag, and nothing else is in that bag. All of that's a trust that, I don't know, especially if you're making something, if you're growing your own or doing commercial production, if you want the highest quality, you need to know what's in the soil, because it's a bioaccumulator. It'll pull out whatever it needs and wants in the soil. I love the idea of live soil and water. It just really, it's what nature does. And what's true is most soils are not live anymore. They've been killed off with too many different things, everything from glyphosate to, It just seems really important to recognize that, especially for anyone that's going to work with cannabis, by reducing your costs and increasing your quality, regenerative practices and living soil is the way to go. You're going to get the best medicine at the best result. And meantime, it's a form of environmental stewardship, because the soil is the foundation of everything that goes on. When we are killing off our soils all over the world, we're killing off our opportunity to survive in the whole climate thing that's going on, which is a whole conversation I don't even want to start, but we all know what's happening there. And yes, regenerative agriculture practices is a way of healing your own little garden, and then maybe your community, and maybe someday our world.
Mm-hmm. No, of course, it's amazing. It's when Canadians accidentally discovered that hemp removes radioactive nucleotides out of the soil, when Joe Strobel, a tobacco farmer, got the first hemp license in Canada and grew a crop, and then of course, because he's a tobacco farmer, he's actively spraying radium-226 on his field. And so they have to monitor the radioactivity levels of the soil, and the soil was too low after hemp, and they were just like, what the heck? And tested the hemp, and we're kind of like, oh, well, geez, this has actually been pulled into this plant over here. That's how the Chernobyl hemp growing project got started. But I like the way Wade put that. It's a good thing. You see, someone was telling me yesterday in Kentucky, oh, all these tobacco plots want to grow cannabis now, and I'm like, well, they're going to be growing like many seasons of just remediative crops, because the soils in those tobacco regions are so beyond contaminated with like really like, forget about avid and myclobutanol, like these guys are taking it to a whole other level where you have to wear full hazmat suits to spray that shit on the plants. It's frightening.
Marcus, do they take that material and combust it or incinerate it, or do they put it back into the soil and remediate it through time?
No, definitely. Back in the day, originally there was two methods. There was the archaic burning and glassifying of the ash, and then there was the Russian electron scientist who was using electron clusters to manipulate and basically take apart radioactive molecules.
They re-extract it. It's valuable.
Oh.
I would think that would have to be neutron, right? If you're doing radiochemistry, you're dealing with neutrons. You're not dealing necessarily with electrons. I'm not a radiochemist.
Yeah, the hemp that they grew in Chernobyl, they just made it in a hempcrete just to encase it. But they did save some of it and look at doing.
I'm sure a fair amount of it found its way into Eastern Europe
That was
CBD
our company that did that.
production.
I don't know if you knew that, but that was our company did that. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if any of that hemp was actually used somewhere in Eastern Europe for CBD oil production.
Yeah, it's sold at gas stations in Florida now for in pens. It's really cheap. $2 a pen. Can't be beat.
Forget Florida, even in cannabis unfriendly states like Illinois and Indiana. Yeah, you go to the truck stop.
$2 a pen.
Right.
Oh my God.
I just saw a whole case full of CBD gummy bears at a road stop, and it was very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so the state trooper that pulls you over and busts you for cannabis is all jacked up on CBD from the gas station.
I'll take that. Radioactive CBD though, oof, I don't know.
They don't know what to do with it. It's kind of humorous. Like I have a hemp license and a THC cannabis, recreational license, and my neighbor finally complained, and my enforcement officer for the rec came out to visit, and he's like, "They look the same, man. How do you tell the difference?" I was like, "You don't, dude, until you test them, And,
True that. It's the same plant.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I'm explaining it to him, and he's just like going, "Well, how do we regulate this when someone's driving down the road and they got a bag full of CBD buds, And I'm like, "You don't, dude. It's a plant. Like we're the way we're doing it now doesn't make any sense. We got to go back to letting it be a plant." And I actually am very, in some twisted way, I'm very thankful to the big ag companies, Monsanto and them, for creating such freedoms for farmers. And in the U.S. we have a lot of freedoms, and so under the hemp bill we don't have to do any of the regulatory bullshit that I've had to do on the rec side, and it's amazing,
And so are they. Which
I know. I mean,
good,
I'm not trying to give them praise, please.
Hey, it's worth noting that, Wade, when you created the Harlequin, that you were grounding your pots at the time. Is that correct, with copper wire into the ground?
Yes, that's true. I was growing indoors in those days, and all of the plants were in shallow 10-gallon pots that and were bonsai'd and whatnot. I'd done a lot of work on making sure the water and the soil they were in and what nutrients I was giving them were things I liked, and had the best lighting I could find, on and on and on. But in sitting with them one evening, asking them why they were not, I could tell it wasn't there yet. They weren't totally happy. And what I heard was they were lonely. And I had to think about what that meant. And so I realized that plants evolved in the ground. And so I had a copper water pipe in the room that I had installed and knew it was good to ground. And so I hooked up some Romex 10-3, so 4 connectors, put them into a grounding bar that I strapped to the copper pipe, and then put the other end of the Romex into 4 of the first 7 plants that became Harlequin. It's part of how Harlequin got the name it has. Because the 4 plants that got ground were identical to 3 other plants that didn't get ground, that had the identical environmental conditions. And the 4 that had ground not only grew much quicker, had bigger leaves, their flowers 2 weeks into flowering were 50% larger. And at 8 weeks into flowering, the plants that had ground had 4 or 5 different colors vegetation, red, purple, orange, a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, but just they were fluorescent coloration in this whole room of green plants. And I realized that, plants need ground. So after that, I got busy running a bunch of wires that were not connected to any form of electricity other than the 6 to 7 cycles a second that the earth actually produces, that we call ground. And And now working outdoors where I can put plants in the ground, you don't have to do wires, you don't have to do anything. And I really think it's a huge part of the living soil thing. When everything else is right in your indoor room, if you haven't provided them a connection to the earth, give them earth, do it a few at a time just to check out to see how it works. I think you'll be amazed at the difference in the results you see. The plants love being in connection with the mother, if you will.
You know, go ahead, Nisha.
Well, I was just going to say that actually visiting here with Josh and Kelly, this is the first time that I've actually toured an outdoor grow. And I have to tell you that what they're doing is so phenomenal. And when Ethan and I drove up, it was immediately obvious that this place is so alive and producing extraordinary medicine. And I think it makes a tremendous difference, not only for all of us, but most especially for those who are trying to restore their bodies with cannabis. And, you know, I would say for anybody that is out there thinking about growing cannabis, please look at what Josh and Kelly and all the other regenerative farmers are doing, because, you know, the soil, I would argue, is really our greatest resource. Some people would argue the point that water is, but I think that the soil is far more important, because if you don't have living soil, you can't use your water properly.
And then you can lose nutrients that go into the rivers, and they can contaminate waterways.
Yeah.
And you work with you know, land trusts and different things in the world, and so that's something you're really interested in, right?
Yeah, I spent 10 years working in the land trust community in Texas, and you know, without well-managed soil, even no matter what we're talking about, whether it's growing medicine or food or just open pasture, the land should have the capacity to capture and clean our water supply, not just for cannabis users and growers, but for everyone. And so having healthy soil is really kind of a gift to the world that we can all participate in.
And I think that it's interesting too, if you really look at what the main number one job of nature, it's making soil. That's nature's number one job.
Yeah, and without healthy soil, we don't have clean water to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And
without the healthy soil, we don't have the healthy microbiology that comes from the soil to help boost our own microbiome.
Yep.
I would just add a last minute statement to that, which is hemp farming is a really big deal right now. And it's alarming to me, and it looks to me like an environmental disaster is happening with all of the plastic mulch. Please stop using plastic mulch. It's not okay. It's not biodegradable. And I don't know of a 100% plant-based plastic. And even if there was 100% plant-based plastic, I still wouldn't use it, because hay and cover cropping is essential to a regenerative hemp farm. If you have the ability to grow a cover crop over the winter that's chest high, and then you till in that whole thing along with another batch of cover crop and then mound that up, you're having all this microbiology being created with the cover crop, and then you layer in huge amounts of hay. And don't tell me it's too much work, because it's what you have to do. So maybe don't do 20 acres, do 5 and do it right, and go get your Uncle Ted and all the other guys to go do 5 acres too, and just do it right. So then you're building your soil over the course of the year, and you're creating so I said aphids because they're around, and you can't control aphids very well, and people are realizing that everywhere right now.
But pollinators can take care of them very well.
And parasitic wasps and different things. So creating habitat within your farm is essential, and living soil, regenerative hemp farms, plastic mulch, environmental disaster.
You
And-
heard it here for the first time on Hash Church. Just Do It Right, the title of the forthcoming book on living soil from Dragonfly Earth Medicine.
We're not impressed with all your acreage. We're impressed with the quality of what you come out with.
Yay.
And I think that
Amen to that, because honestly, I'm constantly having conversations with people all over the world, and they're like, "Yeah, we're looking at 10,000 acres in Manitoba. We're doing 7,700 hectares in Colombia," and I'm like, do you understand how much biomass can be grown on an acre, like with cannabis? You know, like if you shit the bed a couple thousand pounds, but if you do pretty good, you're gonna probably get 4,000 pounds off an acre. I mean, 7,000 hectares. I did the math for this guy without even multiplying his field by 4, because he's easily going to get 4 crops in a yield in a year in Colombia. But just with 1 year on this guy's 7,700 hectares, it ended up being like 60 million pounds of biomass. And if he was able to extract 100,000 pounds of that biomass a day, which, let's be honest, very few are anywhere near that, it was going to take him 9.7 years to extract his first crop if he only grew 1 crop. So I thought in Switzerland in 2000, 2001, everyone got greedy. They started planting big acreages, and all the herb rotted in barns. There's nowhere to, they didn't understand the SOPs of cutting that much cannabis down and curing it and you know, having a space to properly dry it in, and knowing
Getting it off the field.
What's
Just getting
that?
it off the field.
Just getting it off the field, man.
Yep.
So,
I saw that in Kentucky in 2009 and 10, where I went out to a massive, 600 acres, and for 2009 and 10 in the United States, that was a lot. And they were just like, how do we get this off the field? And, I had to design this crazy system for them, and it was really interesting. And now fast forward today, I'm a part of a small farmers network in New York State, and it's all organic, and we're foraging and finding everything on the land to feed to the crops, and it's just a completely different way of doing things, and it's sustainable. It's a much nicer way to be in touch.
Are you
with your
shucking and
plants
bucking right on the field? Like
Yeah.
you're out in the field shucking and bucking? Yeah.
Yep. Now
Yeah,
we got mother buckers
that's what
and
the
all these
Amish
tools.
are doing here in Pennsylvania. It's very manual. I can't wait to see it happen in just a few weeks here. All the Amish farms around us are growing hemp, and it's great if you ask me. I don't know. I mean, you were mentioning the use of plastic mulch. I know the Amish don't use any mulch at all. They do cover crops, and they do certainly rotate their fields, but I don't think there's use of plastic mulch at all, and I believe it's all certified as organic too. So I can't wait to watch the Amish do their hemp harvest this
the
fall.
Amish are definitely the exception. I think he's talking about like everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to remember, they call them strawberries, but nobody grows them on straw. They all grow them underneath black mulch, plastic mulch.
And they taste like wood.
Well, it depends. You can get the strawberries grown that way, but in general, I lean towards your direction.
Well, one of the hallmarks of the Amish is that they do peacefully coexist in today's agriculture production and do have a significant agricultural output, at least in this area of Pennsylvania, and certainly in other areas of the country. So be that as it may, yeah, they're different and they have different farming methods. They're here and they're producing, and I think they're going to have a profound impact on the hemp supply, at least this season, that we hadn't seen in previous seasons.
To your point, they're very advanced in farming. I grew up around Amish, and I've learned quite a lot as a young guy working on Amish farms, being around it. And they're very intuitive, and they have a much different head on their shoulders in terms of how to accomplish something in terms of task orientations. It's very interesting.
Also, we could look at the scaling of Amish, and the reason why it is so successful in the way that the Amish are doing agriculture is because it's many families per large acreage. It's not one company that's running 70,000 acres. A lot of people ask us, can you successfully scale cannabis? Can you successfully scale cannabis? And my question back to them is, show me a big scaling in big ag that's actually successful. Because my feelings is that the big scaling in big ag is not successful. But the way that we can successfully scale in cannabis is taking large acreage and having many families or many growers or many farmers take over that acreage. And that's the way to successfully scale.
What is the acreage that you guys grow yourselves?
5.
We have 5 acres, not of straight cannabis, but 5 acres that we take care of. And probably about 3 acres of it is crops.
And the reason is because we're still under medical license here in Canada, trying to enter into the CTLS, and we have plant numbers. So that's really the reason why we have 5 acres that could be cultivated, but we're not utilizing the whole amount.
So how many plants is that?
The plant license?
No, how many plants do you grow generally?
It changes every year because it's, depending on what medical license we have at the time or whatnot. So
yeah, it's really changing. We just like to stay underneath any numbers that are licensed to us. So right now we're
less than 5,000 because you can't grow more than 5,000 large ones on 5 acres.
Oh yeah, definitely not. No,
we're looking at more like 2,000, and our plant license is for 1,500. So by the time we call, and we ruthlessly call because we are breeders, so we go through and do a ruthless call of not only males, but ones that, maybe aren't showing, high immune response, we'll get rid of.
How tall is your average plant?
Well, so we start our seeds on April 20th, around there, and then we'll do another wave maybe a month later of seeds. And I mean, it's definitely a variation, but I'd say about 8 feet to 10 feet tall. Would you say?
8 to 12.
Yes.
Yeah, 8 to 12. Right now, our Himachal Pradesh plants that we have that we're not light depping are probably about 13, 14 feet tall.
And also we start our seeds then, and then they grow naturally, and we don't use any trellising or anything, so the plants are naturally just being able to support them.
I'm a strong believer in biodynamic organic gardening. I've been doing it for almost 50 years. And what I think one of the biggest differences you see is the amount of roots. I mean, you've got fuzz over everything, and it's just roots on roots on roots on roots, but from the big ones to the little tiny ones. And when you pull the root out, it takes a massive amount of soil with it. It's really, really plugged into the earth. And that's clones. From seeds, they're even a bit more of a taproot with seeds, but with clones, that's mostly the way I grew, but I've done both.
One of the coolest things I ever did in our first hemp field in 1995 is we were collecting a few of the plants. They were tall. I pulled it out, just the plant. It pulled out pretty easy. It was just a hemp plant, but it had a nice long taproot on it. And we ended up pulling out like 5 or 6 of them. And when they were laying on this like trailer, I was looking at the roots, and on a couple of them, the root, it went down, it was twisty. And then right at the bottom of the root was the husk of the seed shell. Like you could see the whole plant coming out of it. I'd never seen that in my life prior to 1995. In all the plants that I had grown, I had never seen anything like that. We pulled up a few more and was like, it was fairly common. We were like, that's incredible.
I would love to let Ethan maybe tell us a brief thing on how to use the roots, because it's an often overlooked medicine. And just really quickly before, one of the coolest things I've seen with roots is putting a crystal right underneath the seed, and then the whole entire plant grows around the crystal. And at the end of the year, you can pull the plant up, and it's like a staff, and all the roots have grown around the crystal, and it's really beautiful. And we had a friend do that. But what are some of the properties in cannabis roots? How do we use that?
Sure. So I became interested in this because a lot of the old literature referred to medical use of the roots. And typically the indications were to treat inflammation, things like granulomas, fibrous tissues, and also for cancer. Interestingly, the chemical makeup of the roots is totally different than what's in the tops, although oftentimes they're used for the same things. So in the tops, as everybody knows, we have cannabinoids and terpenoids. In the roots, in contrast, what we've got are triterpenoids, which actually the most abundant biochemicals in plants. And they're well known for having a protective effect on plant growth. And for us, again, anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer properties. And there are also alkaloids in the roots, which you don't find in the tops at all. So how you use them, a lot of people are incorporating these into dermatological preparations. So very helpful for skin conditions. And some people are cooking them and eating the roots. We really know less about what the effects are there. But I'll just finish by saying I was really surprised. Some months ago, I was in Santiago, Chile, and a guy was selling cannabis products on the street, and one of them was a tincture of cannabis roots.
Nice.
So this knowledge is spreading. Natasha Riz and I have an article that's, I believe, available online on cannabis roots.
It's also available on the dempurefarms.com site. We posted it on there when you sent it to us. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's really super interesting.
Yeah, I had heard about this before from the roots and triterpenoids, not a whole lot, but it always made me realize that, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if cannabis had some powerful root systems, particularly when back in the day when we learned about producing ayahuasca using like a plant containing tryptamine, and then to try and find plants that had the harmine and the harmaline that would sort of potentiate those tryptamines. And we learned about Syrian rue, which was sold at like Middle Eastern grocery stores in North Vancouver and stuff. You could get this seed that you could consume with mushrooms, and it was sort of like an ayahuasca. But then we actually got like Varula virutis for the leaf from the DMT, and then we got Banisteriopsis caapi root bark. And for years, my friends and I had access to this root bark. And I remember when we first met a Caradero shaman from Peru, from Iquitos. He came up, he was also a medical doctor, brilliant man by the name of Jose. And he was tripping out that we had access to the root bark. He was like, whoa, like the first 20 times you only use like the smallest leaves. And he said there was sort of a buildup, and only the hardcore shamans were doing the root bark with their preparations. He was actually kind of like, he was blown away and then actually kind of pissed off about it too. He was like, you guys shouldn't be doing that. Like you should be using a lesser, and to his effect, it was extremely powerful. Everyone that had those concoctions were just like, that is something else.
In Jamaica, root tonics are really popular. Fermented root tonics are all over the island, and every Rasta makes a different, not every, but, just to say a lot of them make a lot of really great root tonics, and cannabis roots are often, a part of that. And in Chinese herbal medicine, traditional TCM, decoctions are made out of roots, alcohol decoctions, so like tinctures and stuff. So I think you get different properties out of tincture extractions from roots than you would get out of, say, a lipid extraction or an oil extraction. So it's nice to learn some of those different compounds and know what your target is.
Yeah, for sure. Gotta welcome Alex Rogers into the room, who just popped in. You kind of tripped me out because from the corner of my eye, you reminded me of Noel Van Schaik, who we gotta like send our like love to the universe, because amazing cannabis activist from Holland, from Haarlem, Willie Wortels, and just like did so much in Europe for the plant, got arrested and escaped authorities back in the day, like super awesome dude. He passed away just recently, so we'll have to send our regards and our love to his family and friends.
Indeed. What's cracking, Bubble?
What's cracking? Well, we got a whole crew in here. We got a new platform. We've been talking about living soils. Ethan Russo just gave the drop on roots and cannabis. Dragonfly Earth Medicine's in the house. Whole bunch of cool folks in the house. You know, man, what's cracking with you? Where are you?
I'm back in Oregon right now at home in Ashland.
Okay. But where were you?
Where was I? I've been in Europe the last couple months. So I was mainly in Slovenia, where I stay. My wife's Slovenian, so we're there a couple months out of the year. But then I travel all around Europe because the conference is getting big there. So I get to write off a lot of my travel expenses, basically.
Well, you'll be writing off a travel expense to Vancouver here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be seeing you there.
For sure, dude. For sure. I can't wait.
To it.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be an awesome event in Vancouver. We're really proud of what we built there. And it's just a sweet, most of my events are the ICBC events are like in Germany, it's like 35% Germans, right? But in Vancouver, it's like 80% of the people come from BC. So it's become a real local BC show. This is going to be packed. It's going to be awesome.
I like it, man. It's a little bit different from most of the shows that I go to. You know, you really just do it in a day. It's like, let's just get this over with, dude. I don't need 5 days and 5 hotel nights and like, dude, like, let's just get this over with.
Exactly. I started doing that in Oregon the one day because of everyone was like conference fatigue and they're like, oh, another conference. I was like, why don't we do it one day?
I would also add the after parties that you throw are actually worth going to. Damian Marley in that like 40-person room in Spain was ridiculous.
Hey, you know, every now a blind hog finds an ear of corn, you know what I'm saying? So we just keep pushing and we get these little gems popping out.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure any of you that are going to be in and around Vancouver on the 16th of September, we'll be holding it down. I guess we're at the West End Bay Shores, huh?
Yeah, it's a dope venue. It's right by Stanley Park, right on the.
I was just there for my daughter's graduation.
Congrats, man!
Quite lovely.
Proud Papa. That's awesome.
Papa, exactly. So who's you got? Like, was it Muggs?
We got DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill doing the after party on this giant yacht right outside the hotel. It's gonna be super pimp. And we also got John Sally coming, retired NBA legend, and we also got all the Canadian usual suspects, all the badasses: Jamie Shaw, John Conroy, a guy named Marcus Richardson, Chief Cannabinoid Officer. I want that title, man. Forget my.
I'm waiting for other people to use it. I'm like, it's been a year since that title has been in existence, and now I'm like, I've seen like I saw Chief Ganja Officer in Jamaica, which made me smile.
Didn't Pinsky use that, Marcus?
What's that?
Didn't Pinsky use that?
I don't know. I've never. Maybe Pinsky's also a Chief Cannabinoid Officer.
I thought so. Yeah.
I wouldn't surprise me.
In his
for
mind.
CRD, weren't you?
No, I don't know what I was at CRD. You know what? I just hate all these titles. It's just like, man, I just want to like make hash. Is that too difficult? Like, that's basically what I'm looking forward to since starting Embark. It's been literally a year of like jumping through hoops and getting building permits and getting all of this stuff lined up so that we can literally just do there's never been an industry like this where it's just like, oh, you want to open up a business? You want to do something? Okay. Well, here you go. Just like binders of like hoops to jump. Some of them are like flaming. Some of them are spinning with like acid flying off of them. Every type of hoop you could possibly fucking imagine jumping through. I'll tell you one thing. It does show that only the most hardcores are willing to push through with any of this, because it's
exactly.
I will also say simultaneously, it totally beats them kicking our doors down and arresting us in prison for 10 years at a time, shooting our dogs and breaking up our families and taking our kids into Child Family Protective Services. Some people have forgotten how shitty that was.
Everybody's forgotten, Bubble. Everyone's forgotten.
Oh, that was. I'm telling you, I can put up with.
I just wanted to say that that's still happening.
It is.
Right now. It's happening in Northern California. It's happening in Mendocino. I just heard a horrible story of a
Santa
farm
Cruz.
in Santa Cruz that they put an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old on their belly with guns to their heads. And they didn't just take down their cannabis, they took down, all of their greenhouses. They went in and ransacked their house. They took personal items. They even took their 4-wheel drive machines that they had and they drove them out into the woods and threw away the keys. This is happening. This is last week.
Jesus Christ. Back in California.
It's a bigger problem. That's not even having to do with cannabis. That's just the authoritarian federal government of the United States and civil forfeiture and all this added leeway they get when they want to take it. They can do whatever they want to. They don't have to charge you, and they can take all your shit. And that goes way beyond cannabis, man. That's just a straight up civil liberty issue. And with the feds coming in like that, it's always been a problem. People know it's a problem. And, or, those who know. But then the whole industry has kind of become anesthetized from all that. And I think most people on this call right now, it's like we're kind of the Roots crew that's still reminding people that, hey, we're here for a reason. You see the big Canadian finance guys come into the room and how they talk and whatever. And I'm not dissing any one group, but all I'm saying is that this shit was built on the blood, sweat, and tears on the backs of lives being ruined. And so it's always a great topic to bring up and mention because I think most people are tripping. That's what we do with the ICBC. That's the first thing I said. I said the fucking government's gonna fuck everything up. The regulators are gonna mess everything up. And so what's really important is that all criminal penalties are ended towards cannabis and that everybody has the right to a home garden, right? So everything else that doesn't really matter, as long as all criminal, if you go sell 10 pounds, the weed's not the crime. It's you don't pay your tax. I guess that's always going to be a crime, okay? But that's a different crime. People could deal with that. The weed, all the criminal penalties. I'm like Jack Hare. He used to be like, oh, it's like tomatoes. And some people are like, oh, Jack, that's a little crazy, But fuck no, it's not. But, but that's never going to happen. So what we can do to mitigate that is just say, oh, let's keep ending the criminal penalties. The battle has just begun. And everyone's got to have their home garden, around the world.
I don't know. The Amish grow pretty good tomatoes.
Let those motherfuckers start growing some weed and watch what happens,
They do, man. The Amish have been growing weed for years.
Oh, yeah. I've been doing it for decades, man.
Word. Masters of the game.
Wow, yeah, that's right. Someone just pointed out this is the first church with 12 people. We were always limited to 10 people, 9 invitees and myself with the Google platform. But someone asked me the other day, they're like, well, how many people can you get in there? And I'm like, well, it says 100. It says I can put 100 people in this live chat with cameras. How ridiculous is that? Harm Reduction Club.
Yeah, Alex, we're up here in BC. We're doing amazing regenerative agriculture and a ton of education. We'd love to be involved in the ICBC.
Well, hit me up and we can talk about it. The schedule for Vancouver is packed, but if maybe we could do some little few minute, like get up rah and just make everyone the fuck aware of what the hell is going on and why we're here. Just hit me up and we'll do something, okay?
Yeah, we definitely will. Thanks.
Sweet.
I definitely have to get there too.
Hey, I got a question for Dr. Russo. I have a question for Dr. Russo, if I could. Please. Ethan, do you know what the latest and greatest is on the FDA's position on CBD? Do you have any update on that at all?
Sure. So the situation is with the Farm Bill, the hemp bill, supposedly a lot of these preparations with less than 0.2% THC are legal. However, that is not the position of the Food and Drug Administration or the DEA, okay? So from the position of the FDA, the preparation Epidiolex, which is 98% pure CBD, is a Schedule 5 substance. That's the lowest level of control. But that only applies to Epidiolex, and it does not apply to any other form of cannabidiol, which remains in Schedule 1. And I'd point out that cannabidiol has not been scheduled in most countries extra USA. With the DEA, it's, again, to them, it's all illegal. And they will tell you they reserve the right to arrest anybody engaged in this kind of commerce. So it's great that we've made progress in the States, however, and no one should suffer the illusion that it couldn't all disappear tomorrow if the political will were there to do it. Now, it would be a stupid idea and contrary to everything that we'd like to have happen, but that is still possible because of these discrepancies in the law and what the administrations feel the situation still is.
Couldn't there be an exception to that rule, though, if the Department of the Secretary of the Health and Human Services issues an exception to the FD&C Act to put CBD into foods and whatnot? So isn't there always that loophole that it is just really up to one person in the Trump administration right now? I think person is an acting HHS secretary. I don't even think it's a fully, Senate appointed one. But isn't it just true that there is a loophole for an exception to that law?
As far as that goes, the truth doesn't matter. It's the semblance of truth that you can create. And they will bury anyone under a tangle of legalese to make their point. So I wouldn't count on that at all. The Attorney General could do something if he were so inclined. Don't hold your breath. What we really need is Congress to tackle this. And there are available bills. They're just not moving at this time. So the potential is clearly there for this to be rectified, but it hasn't happened yet.
And really, to change the laws, we really need change in the Senate, because I think Mitch McConnell, even though he's so-called pro-hemp, is dead set against moving any cannabis legislation to the floor for vote. So he just needs to go.
True that. He's got to go. Hey, there was a question that I missed like 3 times now from Cannabis in the chat room, and he wanted to know if anyone knew anything about cannabis hypermesis syndrome.
Goodness.
Do we have another hour? Okay.
Whatever.
Very quickly, this is a real syndrome. This is not someone's imagination. It is not related to neem, as you will hear in some quarters. This only occurs in people who do very heavy chronic doses of THC. What is going on? We don't know precisely, but my theories on this would be one of 2 things. One is that we're seeing an expression of the biphasic effect. It's well known that cannabinoids can have opposite effects at different dose ranges. So it may be that. So it may be that what usually treats nausea, produces nausea and vomiting at these elevated doses. But at the same time, the THC is still lowering the set point in the hypothalamus and producing hypothermia, which explains the hot bathing phenomenon. The other thing that could be happening is because of chronic exposure to THC, that we're getting a downregulation of the CB1 receptors in the brain. And this will cause a change in the way that THC acts. It will become an antagonist at the receptor instead of an agonist. So it will reverse the normal state of affairs. The solution to cannabinoid hyperemesis, which produces the vomiting, nausea, abdominal pain, and this bathing behavior, the solution is abstention from cannabis for a period of time. And people will get better. However, most will suffer a recurrence if they go back to their prior use patterns. I think the solution is twofold. One is use the lowest dose that produces the desired effect. I also think that cannabidiol may be protective. So certainly people should be using type 2 or even type 3 cannabis preparations with a good quota of cannabidiol.
And Ethan, does this happen to people who eat cannabis or only smoke it?
Well, there aren't that many people that are ingesting THC type cannabis orally. It's a good question, David. I'm just not sure that generally we're seeing it with people that are smoking and especially doing vapes all day long. It's the cannabis concentrates seem to be strongly associated with this.
Interesting. There must be something else going on, obviously, because there's a lot of people who use a lot of THC daily that don't get this. It would be interesting to find what needs to be lined up for this to occur. People are saying, "Oh, why does he say it couldn't be neem?" I think it could be neem, and I've heard the argument as well. For me, it's not a huge leap of faith for me to think that a substance like cannabis that works through the endocannabinoid system and creates all these different effects and regulates all these biological functions, that there couldn't be systems where it flips, where where just something's happening in the system and it's getting it wrong. It's like you said, I've seen enough people back in the day take a big hit of bubble hash for the first time and literally either go white and pass out or turn green and throw up. Like it was something that I saw a multitude of times. And for my own self, have I ever taken a big enough rip that I felt like I was going to puke? Definitely at Skunkman Sam's house, I felt that a couple of times.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'm guilty for being.
But yeah, I have a theory on this. I really can't share at this point. But I think in the future, we may be able to identify people who are at risk of this syndrome. And as they say, watch this space.
We have.
I would really like to find a single person that gets it from orally eating too much cannabis. I mean,
Possible. That's possible. Again, generally it's been association with high intake of smoked high THC material.
And I think there's actually a couple different things that are creating this hypermesis and it being a hot topic. You have, obviously, on previous hash churches, we discussed potential risks associated with pesticide contamination. There are some labs or some products being consumed in the Midwest and non-regulated states that are exhibiting signs of pesticide poisoning. But with cannabis hypermesis syndrome, I think it's just a supersaturation within the CB1 receptors, because a lot of the patients that are exhibiting it are consuming greater amount of cannabinoids than previously available in the market.
And do you think in terms of the conversion of Delta-9 when you ingest something, there's something to that? Would you also believe that I say to myself all the time, we need to better understand what happens inside the body on the conversion. And I'd like to hear if anyone has actually done any studies or looked into that.
Well, I could address this again. I mean, it's still a bit of a controversial topic. There were experiments done by Leo Hollister back in the 70s that alleged that 11-hydroxy-THC, which is what THC gets converted to in the liver on the first pass, that was 4 to 10 times more psychoactive than THC. However, there was a lot of work at GW on Sativex, and a lot of this was not published, but the bottom line was they looked at THC levels in the blood, 11-hydroxy-THC levels in the blood, and had patients talk about how high they were on a 100-point scale. And there were just no good correlations that showed that there seemed to be any difference in the psychoactivity of THC and 11-hydroxy-THC. So it's not a settled issue. Unfortunately, the experiments that you need to do to prove this would involve putting a radioactive label on the molecules and injecting them intravenously. I think you're going to have trouble getting that through an ethics committee. So I'm not sure this is one we can settle, but bottom line is it's unclear that there's a big difference in the psychoactive effects of THC and 11-hydroxy.
And I just wanted to add one really quick thing is that I'm seeing a lot of misdiagnosis with this as well. So doctors who don't necessarily have the education, they'll ask the patient, you know, are you smoking? And then they'll just give a diagnosis of that when the person is actually having a gallbladder attack or something that is showing the same symptoms. So I believe that, you know, pushing this education forward so more clinicians and people and physicians have an educated, you know, knowing of what the symptoms are and how to test for it.
We have a friend who has the issue, and when, you know, they smoke our cannabis, she doesn't have it at all. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to make a statement on other than that happens.
Well, it's got to be righteous.
Right.
I have a friend who can smoke cannabis, but if she smokes hash, she passes out unconscious. Like very badly, like to the point where she knocked out teeth the last time, and we don't even let her smoke it anymore. You know, like not even sitting down, she's fallen out of chairs. Like she completely loses consciousness.
I just wanted to mention to Ethan that we have received approval to do a radio-labeled study of our hydrogenated cannabinoids through intranasal delivery. So it was an arduous process, but we're finally there, and so we're at the front end of basically commissioning a study to look at intranasal delivery using radioactivity just as a way to follow how it goes into the animal's brain.
That's animals. On this one, we need feedback on the psychoactive levels, and unless we've got a rodent whisperer out there, I don't know that we're going to get full answers.
Well, animals first, right?
Animals first. The bat phone is going. I'm not sure. I didn't know Batman was in the room, but Batman, you better grab
Sorry,
that.
that's my home phone ringing. Sorry about that, Marcus.
That's Dr. Batman to you.
Yeah, the bat phone.
And don't be sorry whatsoever. We're chill. We're chill. Hash Church was a little intense in the beginning as we were doing it every single Sunday from wherever I was in the world. And I built this incredible, like it was stressful. I'm not even gonna say how stressful it was, but now it's nice and loose. You know, we have a dialogue, we have our conversation. It's great that everyone was able to come in. I said I was gonna do 2 hours today, and we are at 2 hours and 1 minute. So as always, let me just change the screen so everyone can be seen. This is a nice way to go through things. I can thank everyone for coming, and yeah, if anyone wants to say anything. Oh, there's a really cool function, not that we're going to use it now, but for future references, there's a function where you can like put your hand up. Like it's a little like thing on the box where it says like, you know, if someone's saying something and you want to chime in, rather than 4 people all talk at once, you know, you can put your hands up and create an order. So maybe we'll try that next time. Thank everyone.
That'll never work. You can forget about that one, Bubba.
I feel you. Thanks for coming out, even last minute, Alex. I'll see you at ICBC in a couple of weeks. At D420K and Johnny B, Mr. Wade Laughter and Dutchblooms, Coltyn, Turner. Thank you, dude, for coming and hanging out with us. As always, we're definitely going to have you back. Collin and Mike West. Yeah, everyone that is there from the Dragonfly Earth Medicine, Josh and Kelly and Nishi and Ethan. Thank you all for coming and chilling. Skunkman Sam, as always. I'm Bubble Man. We'll see you guys next time on Hash Church. Peace out.
See ya.
Thank you, Bubble.